Hello and happy Monday. I hope everyone's week is off to a great start. I'm winding down from weekend 2 of Austin City Limits. I got to see the Chicks and Paramore in one weekend. So, I'm not well in the best way. So I'm so excited to introduce this next guest, Kelsey Heimerman. She has been one of my friends since we were in 7th grade in Catholic school together. And you'll hear more in the interview. She's always been incredibly talented, but in the last 5 years, she has really just risen to the top in her field, and especially in Dallas. And I have been working on this podcast pretty much all of 2022. So I interviewed her in winter of last year, and she had this incredible studio. And as you all probably know, in Dallas, we had horrible floods a couple months ago, and Kelsey was traveling the world as she does and had to stop her travels to come back, and her art studio was completely ruined. So she was able to store her art at some places, and she had to sell a ton of it. It was really heartbreaking at the moment, but now it's just such a beautiful reminder that you can make the best out of any situation. She now has all of her art at Samuel Lynn Galleries, which is a very well-respected gallery in Dallas. And this is the perfect time to put out this podcast because she will have her art showing there until October 29th. And I highly recommend you get out there and see her art. She's not only going to be very well known for her art, but she is an amazing human being. And the stories that go into her art are just so incredible. And she's a wonderful person. And I had so much fun interviewing her. We get a little deep, which you know I love to do. So without further ado, please welcome Kelsey Ann Heimerman to the podcast. Kelsey and we have been friends since 7th grade. We met in 7th grade at Nolan Catholic High School in Fort Worth, Texas. And Kelsey and I were the artsier kids in the class, I would say. Always knew Kelsey had a talent. I posted a photo of Kelsey's art studio a couple months ago when I was here. And I said that her first medium that I ever knew of was makeup. And it was the blue eyeshadows. But I remember you literally teaching me, do you know you can add water to eyeshadow and make it eyeliner? You're 12, 13 years old, so you don't know that yet. So Kelsey taught me a lot about makeup, and that seemed to be her first medium, which has now moved into this insane medium that it is today. But you grew up your dad was a carpenter. Your mom is pretty artsy too.
Yes, my mom's a glass blower and she's an art professor. She teaches at UTA, an intersection between art and technology.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yes.
And then you watch your dad just kind of work with his hands.
Yeah. So my dad built the house that we grew up in, and anything else my mom ever wanted, dad do it. So we got to decorate all the walls and he made the walls.
That's incredible. I don't think I knew that he built the house you grew up in.
Yeah. He completely remodeled it.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So do you remember that first moment? I remember having my music moment where I knew I really loved it and it wasn't just something that like everyone else loved. Yeah. Do you remember having that moment with your art? Was it like maybe something you saw your mom doing or?
Yeah. I remember being a kid and just thinking that going home and making art was totally normal.
Yeah.
And then when I started spending the night at other kids' houses, I'd be like, okay, what do y'all do after school? Where's your art room? And they would be like, what are you talking about? So it was kind of like that thing happening over and over again that I realized making art was unique. And, it was kind of like a little skill that I had that made me feel cooler in my life. So I just always loved making art and drawing and making things for other people.
And it did make you cooler, by the way.
Oh, that's so nice.
And then, so after high school, you went to UNT and you got a BFA. And also I have 3 pages of research that I've done on Kelsey, which is very surreal to do such research on a friend. But I did learn a lot that I didn't know because we kind of lost touch. When I was in Nashville and Dallas, so we've reconnected within the last few years because now we kind of run the same circle in Dallas. But there's some stuff I missed out on that was really interesting. So as I go back to my notes.
Sure.
What I loved is that you really enjoy studying mankind. That kind of seems to be the link between all of your artwork. And I know, just knowing you, you seem very fascinated by psychology and just mankind in general. Can you kind of explain, was that something that you learned in college that kind of caught your attention?
I think I just developed an interest in like consciousness when my ideas about philosophy and reality kind of started shifting.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, I've been through a lot of different phases in my life where I've full-heartedly believed in different things, like from Catholicism to nihilism to existentialism to like, you know, polytheism is kind of where I'm at now. This kind of like multiple God verse idea, which
is apparent in your art too, which I've seen.
Yeah. But I also like to make art that just references global culture. So like one of my favorite inspirations in life is traveling. And I think we're at such like a special time in history right now for women to be able to travel the world like we can, for like there to be all these incredible opportunities with technology. I think you will always be a relevant artist if you can like talk about what is happening right now in your time period in a way that's kind of non-objective. So like the artwork brings like cultures from all over. It kind of slams together a bunch of symbolism from the world as a whole, not just from one viewpoint. Where when I studied art in school, in art history, you learn art and it's kind of segmented. You learn about African art and European art, and you learn about all these different time periods, and everything is kind of structured in a way where it's like chapters of our history. Well, now we have like a global history. We can talk to people on our phones in Ukraine, and we can talk to people from all over the world and like see what's happening and have like real-time impact. So I think the art that's being created now should talk about that.
That's really interesting. I like what you said. We've talked about this kind of before, but I think chapters in your life specifically too, as an artist, and looking back at each chapter and without judgment is such a huge thing that we've talked about in art. And I have that problem with my music. Sometimes we've talked about this. You need to put art out. You can't sit on it. But with my music and your art, it can be so challenging to look at it without judgment. But that's where you were at that time, right? Do you ever look back at your art with that kind of judgment of, ooh, because sometimes with my music, I'm like, ooh, it's cringy now because I don't feel that way anymore. You know, I'm out of it. Do you feel like that with your art? Do you just let it be because that's where you were at that time?
I just kind of, I think, let it be. And sometimes I'll really surprise myself. Like, I mean, today on my Facebook memories, this painting from 9 years ago popped up. And I was like, oh yeah, I actually really loved that painting.
That's amazing.
You know, it was like something that I hadn't seen in a long time. And even now, almost a decade later, I still really loved it. And it also just really reminds me of like the long journey that I've had to be here. When I see stuff happening from a decade ago and just to remind myself that I was like selling art when I was 20, it's rewarding in a way. Of because
it is.
I just,
where you are now.
Yeah. And like, I mean, where I am now was my dream 10 years ago.
Totally.
Like now the dream is shifted and different because I'm always wanting to like expand, but it's like humbling to look back and like see that people were willing to like pay for those paintings early on. Yeah. Before I really even had a name for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all about your art and your talent.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, God, you're such a good interview. We have so much good stuff to talk about because I want to talk about your history, but you have so much good insight and you've seen so much too that I don't want to dwell too much on what you've done. I really want to talk about where you are and what you're thinking.
Okay, cool.
But I do want to talk about where you've been because it says everything. And so 2015 is when you opened this art. Is it this art studio that we're sitting in now?
No, this location I've been at for 4 years, but I opened up a studio in Dallas 8 years ago.
Okay. And that's that's young to be doing that. You were 24,
I was
25 years
25.
old.
Yeah.
And you were really financially struggling around that time because it's like you're putting all your money into an art studio that you're sourcing. It's all you. But I read somewhere that you said that being frugal was a huge part of how you ended up being the artist that you are today. Do you think that phase in your life?
I mean, it just kind of like happened, honestly, out of necessity. Like before I had the studio, I owned a coffee shop.
Right.
And in the coffee shop, it taught me business, but it also taught me like how hard it is to independently run a business and be an entrepreneur. So when I decided that I wanted to quit my day job and do art full time, I mean, it was really just like a soul thing. Like I just hated working for other people, and like I didn't want to steam milk anymore in the coffee shop, even though it was a business that I created. Like I just knew that I was supposed to be a painter. So I just put everything that I could into it. And then slowly it started giving back to me.
There are so many people who are trying to transition from that day job into doing what they're passionate about full time. What, cliche as it is, what would you tell those people?
It's such like a delicate question to answer because so many people are in like different circumstances. Right. And like, I feel like when I did it, because I was 25, I was at this advantage where like, I feel like when you're really young, you can take a risk.
Right.
You can take a risk at any point in your life, but it gets more complicated because you have families, you have insurance, you have all these other responsibilities that you have to think about. But I mean, my intuition and what I want to say when anybody ever asks me that question is you have to quit your job.
Right.
The one thing in between you being a full-time artist and you being a part-time artist is your day job. Right. So like quit your job, find whatever means you can to make your expenses smaller so you can have a month of time to dedicate towards that new entrepreneurial goal. And like you'll be under so much pressure during that first month of quitting your job that you will creatively think of new ideas and new possibilities.
Yeah, your feet are held to the fire.
And something will come of it if it's truly meant to be.
Did you ever have a moment where you said, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah, there was one moment in particular where I was like I would call it like a breaking point.
Yeah.
Where I had put everything that I could into the art studio. I had 2 simultaneous exhibitions going at once and nothing had sold. And it was 30 days into it. And like the last couple days that the exhibitions were up, I was in my studio, like pretty much in tears,
panicking,
asking the universe or whoever was out there listening that I believed in at the time to help me to like I always ask, like, let me be a vessel for your creative light. That's what I like ask the world to use me as. And the next day I walked into one of the galleries and I was ordering a pizza on the phone and this guy bought 16 paintings from me. And it like changed my career path.
That was at Nasher, right?
No, this was at the Jeanette Kennedy.
Okay, that's right.
I was awarded a small micro grant from the Nasher that first year that I did open up the studio, which was a really great push from my city. That was incredible. I think I was the youngest recipient of it at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So who bought 16 is it someone I know?
It's not somebody that you know.
Okay. I thought it was that one person that we know. It was just a random, but all one buyer?
All one buyer.
Yeah. Crazy. That is crazy. So that kind of gave you the time to travel.
Yes.
After that.
Well, that gave me like funding pretty much for the next year to keep doing what I wanted to do.
Right.
Which was making more art, holding more exhibitions, and slowly like travel bleeds into my life like a little more, like the more successful I become
the more art you sell. Yeah. And I know that you view traveling as part of your art because you have to see the world to be able to paint it, right? Or paint your interpretation of what you're learning through
definitely.
Where you're traveling. So tell my listeners where you've been pre-pandemic.
Okay. So
that was influential to you.
Italy is a big one.
Mm.
I have my oldest sister in Italy. So I've been going there for a little over a decade.
And where is she exactly?
She's in Treviso now, but she lived in Venice for about 10 years.
Wow.
So going to Venice really changed my life, honestly. It was just such an impactful trip going over to Europe and like walking through those old cities and the cathedrals, and the lifestyle is really different. And I would say like more so than imagery, it is like a lifestyle thing that traveling teaches me. It like gets me out of this American brain mindset and like allows me to enjoy life and food and culture and music and scenery in a different way, which like I think my soul lives definitely outside of Dallas, but like my business and all my network and friends are here. So that's why I do both.
Well, it's good that you can have your setup here and then you take your little trips to go and feed your soul. And and Italy is just the epitome of that. It's always such a good, it's so touristy. There's places that are obviously so touristy, but I'm sure when you go and you're seeing the culture, it's such a good reminder to slow down, because it's manja. They want to enjoy, they want to sit.
Totally.
What's that phrase? I forget. It literally means to sit and do nothing. And that's like what they live their life by. And it's so good for us to go and see that we can just be and still be so content and happy and contributing to the world, and not in this rat race like we get in.
Absolutely. Other places I've been to, I really love Mexico City. I've been to lots of beautiful places in the Caribbean. I spent the summer in Costa Rica, which I really, really enjoyed. And like almost all 50 states in the United States.
That's incredible. What'd you learn in Costa Rica? That was
surfing, which also kind of changed my life, because it was this skill that like I didn't even know I had a desire to learn until I was learning it. But it was just teaching me so much about endurance and nature, and it was like the most epic adrenaline rush surfing in the ocean, because it was unlike anything that I ever felt once I finally figured it out. And I feel like for a lot of my life, I've been like chasing these feelings of like, whether it be like success or like acceptance, or even like experimenting with like mind altering drugs in like my younger years, like chasing after this, like what's under the veil. And like surfing was kind of this like natural relationship with, I think, something that I've been looking for a long time.
That's really interesting. And you feel like that was something that you were able to conquer and kind of get through?
I would not say conquer. There's definitely a lot of different levels.
Well, for sure. But just at least that,
but like first, I dip my toes in the water for the summer, and like I can't wait to go back.
Is that what you did last summer? Okay. And when are you going back?
Hopefully in August.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Ooh, so awesome.
Yes.
Speaking more about like surfing is such a mind game, and keeping your mind right is so important with what you're doing. We've talked a lot about daily meditation and routine, and I know that's my biggest thing. I love hearing people's daily routine.
Nice.
Can you tell us what your daily routine is?
Yes. Honestly, it's pretty simple. I do not sleep with a cell phone in my room. So my phone actually stays downstairs, and I just wake up when
you get restful sleep,
which is normally around like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I try to wake up and like start my day with some kind of gratitude thing, even if it's just like thanking my dog for being there, or thanking my loft for being clean, and saying hello to all the paintings in here. And then I usually take the dog for a walk, and I try to be outside for like 20 minutes. First thing, I read recently that it's like something special about the energy of the sun before like 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Yep, I read that too.
Yeah.
And that vitamin D right when you wake up is the best thing for your system.
So we go on a little walk, and then, I might do a few tasks in the studio, but then usually I head straight to some kind of coffee shop, and I just hang out and work, usually run into somebody that I know and chit chat and kind of just like experience life in the morning.
That's nice.
Really enjoy like early morning people, because I feel like the connections are really authentic and real. And then by noon, I'm usually back in the studio, just like working on whatever tasks.
And then you paint for the afternoon usually, or
yeah, I
whatever you
mean,
have to do.
painting, like I wish I could paint every day, but
Yeah.
I am not painting every day.
Yeah.
I paint as often as I can, but there's a lot of other things that go on.
Well, yeah,
to keep
you have
this
to
place
keep
running.
this place running by yourself.
Yeah.
And she lives in it too. And I mean, but honestly, I come in here every time and there's an energy shift from outside to inside, and it's very special. And I can imagine sleeping in it and in your art and feeling it every day must be it would be very healing, I would think.
Oh, thank you.
To see it all every day.
I love living around them. Sometimes it's sad to see them go, but I know that they like live other lives with other people. But it's, yeah, I don't think you really understand what it's like to live with artwork until you live with artwork that you really love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you meditate every day?
I try to. I probably get it right about like 80% of the time.
How'd you start out for my people who want to start doing it but haven't taken the leap yet? I know that's something so hard to get started, but I feel like once you do and you get the hang of it, it can be so impactful on your life. But so many people get so daunted by
I started at a studio. There used to be a studio in the neighborhood called The Refuge, and it was amazing. They did sound baths, meditation, like light yoga, not like hot yoga workouts, but it was like chill yoga
and restorative.
Yeah. And that studio changed my practices in life because it was so easily accessible, which is the other advice I give, is like find a studio that is like really close to your house, because if you can make like the step to getting there a lot shorter, like instead of being like, oh, I gotta meditate like every day of my life for the rest of my life, it's like such a daunting task.
It is so daunting.
But if you can just find like a studio with like a teacher that's impactful, I think that's a really good way to learn. But also the apps now. I mean, I meditate mostly on Insight Timer.
Oh, I don't have an Insight Timer. I need to look at that. I do Headspace.
Okay, yeah. Or I think there's one, Calm.
Yeah, Calm is good.
But I've been using Insight Timer and it's really great. I mean, I'll use it from anywhere between like 15 minutes to like 2 hours. Sometimes I'll just turn them on even while I'm painting.
Yeah.
And just
it's guided.
Okay,
that's nice.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the easiest way to start is with guided. How have you seen meditation come into your work life? Have you seen any sort of long-term effects with it?
Yeah. I think there's like definitely I have more confidence in myself. I have more acceptance of myself, which you need a lot of that in this industry. Totally. Because I mean, so much of what I do is rejection. I would say it's like 80% rejection. That's why I started my own independent business, is because I got rejected from every gallery in Dallas. So, just believing in myself more, it allowed me to like have quiet moments when I needed to like feel my feelings when I needed to. It helps me with processing. It helps me to know when to like speak and not speak.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a thing that nobody talks about with the meditation is it is such a confidence booster, because you can go into you can channel your intuition a lot quicker. I feel like for me, I'm able to get that instead of having to, I think people are so afraid to sit and be quiet with themselves too. We're always running, I think, to try to get to the next problem sometimes too. So I feel like that's a good insight on that, is just feeling like you can sit with your own self. Yeah. Give yourself permission.
Ultimately, it's the observation of our thoughts, right? So like, I mean, that's how meditation started for me. And then once I found a good teacher and once I found that studio, I remember just going into these guided meditations by other teachers. And like by the end of the meditation, there'd be like tears running down my face. And I had really like solved something that I'd been like working through. And it was like so beneficial and healing. So then after sitting with those people for long enough, you're able to like do those lessons to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're not constantly asking for outside sources of help. And because the answers I feel like are always in your heart. They're always within.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
finding all those keys to access it.
And trusting yourself for me is a hard thing, because sometimes you don't trust your own intuition, but really if it's on your heart, I feel like it's on there for a reason.
Yeah.
So I like that. That resonates with me.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. So my producer, Chris, and I were talking to you before, and she's all into the NFTs. I'm still learning about all this. So explain what an NFT is to my listeners that don't know, and then tell me what you're doing with NFTs and how you're doing it.
Well, I think a really nice bridge to this conversation is a joke. And the joke is there's a therapist sitting on a sofa, and the person talking to him is saying, "Are the NFTs in the room with us now?" Okay. I feel like that's really like what that. It feels like.
It does feel like that. Yeah.
Everybody who's into crypto and NFTs really knows a lot of information about it, and everybody on the outside is like, what is going on?
Right.
What is real?
Are they in the room with us right now? Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. Okay, an NFT is a non-fungible token, which allows you to put a piece of digital art on the blockchain. So essentially, another way I like to describe it is like a real work of art in the physical art world is authenticated through a variety of ways, but essentially it's like an object. So you have an oil painting that's signed, and maybe it has a certificate with it, and all those things allow that painting to be traded from collector to collector. So now that we have a digital world, and we're all on our phones, and we're taking our own pictures, and we're recording our own audio, and we're making our own music, we have all this like digital asset that's kind of hard to like put your signature on it.
Oh, I see.
To say that like it was made by you, that I didn't just screen grab something and like try to resell it. So basically an NFT just takes like a piece of digital code and wraps it around that
makes
digital
sense.
Asset.
You said it way more digestible than anyone I've heard.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I listened to Paris Hilton.
That's okay.
Try to discuss it, and she didn't help me. That makes sense. Okay.
And then, so because it has this nice ribbon of code around it, and it's on the blockchain, it's very trackable. There's only one of them. I, as an artist, could sell you a digital asset, and you would know that it was real because of what the code was.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's just a digital. So it would never equate to a real painting.
Well, yeah, it's a digital asset. So it only exists in a digital marketplace. Now there's like a variety of things that people are doing though. Like you could have a physical piece be sold with your NFT.
Got it. Okay.
You could, people are doing like video clips, people are doing music. It's kind of about like owning a digital moment in a way.
Right.
Where like, I think people get like a little lost in the idea, but I think people also don't realize like how like we are already living in such a digital world. Like our money is already very digital. The way we communicate is very digital. How we share information through social media is all digital. Like we're interacting with this stuff all the time.
Right.
It's just the technology behind it is complicated. So I think people don't really realize like how close to digital mediums they actually already are. But I think NFTs are something that's going to be really beneficial for the world.
That's incredible. All right, so you're putting them out already. So you have some.
Yes, there are some NFTs on, I think I'm on OpenSea and Rarible.
How many different platforms are there to get NFTs on?
There's lots of different platforms. And like, now because there's such a craze, there's lots of people trying to build NFT platforms.
Right.
But just like any branding sector, you're going to have like your heavy hitters. Like
totally.
Maybe there's a lot of companies that make sneakers, but everybody knows Nike.
Nike's it. Yeah. So do you think there's longevity in this?
Yeah.
It's going to be for those big hitters more, you think?
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with like what's popular now and what's popular in 10 years. I think right now we're kind of at like the genesis of the technology. So some stuff's, I mean, it's a risky market. Like it is volatile for sure. I mean, but it's also interesting. I think you could get really lucky and it could like flop on some things. But as far as the technology, as far as like digital things being tracked on a ledger,
that's here to stay.
That's here to stay because we need that in our world. Right. We need that to like talk to people in other countries and to like send transactions to other countries. Like right now, the only way we have to do that is through banks, which banks don't always, like my sister lives in Italy. It's hard for me to send her money because we don't have the same bank. So like it just gets tricky. That's where like blockchain technology can help solve some of those problems.
Okay, that makes sense. How do you plan on?
Big conversation.
I know it's a big one, but I'm not equipped. This is not the NFT podcast. I talk about feelings. But it's interesting. How are you incorporating this in your business model? Like I'm sure you have to be pretty able to adapt to new mediums too.
Well, so essentially I'm just making digital paintings. So I'm using like programs that high-end creators make, like mostly Procreate. Anybody can grab that subscription service and you can make awesome stuff on it. And then I'm putting those things on the blockchain so people could pay me in Ethereum or Bitcoin essentially. And then you just run all those sales like you would your normal business.
What's the price range on something like that for you?
An NFT?
Yeah.
I think there's like single editions out there for like 1 ETH, which is about like $3,000 or $4,000 depending on what the market is. And then there's numbered editions. So like a limited edition print would be. So I think at like 0.1 ETH or something.
Yeah, 0.1 ETH. Yeah. Totally. 0.1 ETH. It's like 10 grand?
No, 0.1, which would be like, I don't know what the market's at.
Does it go
today.
down?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be down. Yeah. Because like 1 would be whatever an ETH is selling at. And then 0.1 would be like a tenth of it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. We're going to move on for NFTs now.
Let's move on.
Okay. You are a podcast consumer. You like to listen to podcasts.
Yes.
What are some of your personal favorite podcasts that help you with your personal growth or your spiritual growth?
Well, Caroline's Obsession.
Okay. Yeah. Right. All right. This is a Keep Looking Up podcast. It's this one.
Oh, the Keep Looking Up
podcast. Yes. Let's get the name right. Besides my podcast hasn't launched yet. What are your other favorite podcasts?
I really love Jay Shetty.
Okay.
Chelsea Handler.
Yes.
But kind of more her old stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're listening, Chelsea. I hope you are, but
she's not listening. Thank you for even putting that out there, but I don't think Chelsea Handler's listening. No, I like her too though, but I like her old stuff better as well.
Yeah. What else have This American Life.
So good.
Radio Lab. I've been listening to that one for a long time.
Are you a big reader? Are you a big self-help book reader?
I do a lot of audiobooks when I'm
me too. So what are some of your most impactful books that you've read or listened to?
Well, Rupi Kaur, the poet, I really love. 48 Laws of Power, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Have you
read The Power of Now?
Yeah, The Power of Now. Eckhart Tolle, right? Marcus Aurelius.
I've been hearing a lot about him lately.
Yeah.
More than before.
That's the one that I just finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole list we could include for the viewers.
I'd love that. Speaking of including something for my viewers, I have a question I've been asking. You don't have to give me that many, but if I had to make a playlist of my life that would play maybe in the movie of my life, or just is the kind of mission statement playlist for who I am. Songs that are super impactful to me, maybe songs I just grew up listening to. Do you have like 2 or 3 that you know from childhood, even to songs that you turn on to give you motivation when you paint, to get you out of a funk?
This is a great question, but it's a hard question.
I know. Maybe we can marinate on it and we can come back. Are there any wellness hacks that you want to tell my listeners besides the not sleeping with your phone in your room? That's a great one.
I mean, I just feel like I try to repeat the stuff that I've already heard in my life, but I mean, getting enough sleep. I'm very careful about diet. So really watching processed foods with like a bunch of sugar in them. I'm really careful with alcohol. I'm even like really careful with any kind of chemical products in my house. So like all my soaps, my cleansers, like anything used to clean or wash, all that stuff's natural. The meditation's super important. And I think people just need to like allow themselves a little bit of like grace and time to like give back into their own life in some way. I feel like I meet a lot of people who seem like they're like caught up in like the merry-go-round of life. It's like going too fast and they can't really find like space. And I think my dad always used to say everybody has the same amount of time. And like when I was a kid, it like really annoyed me because, you know, we'd be asking him to like do something extra for us, or, you know, why does one sibling get something over the other? And he'd be like, everybody has the same amount of time. And it really stuck with me. And like, as I get older, I mean, like logically, everybody doesn't have the same amount of time.
Right.
You know, some people have this like really unfair thing happen to them. But I think the heart of that is that everybody's on this planet for like the amount of time that they're allotted and like make the most of it. So like not getting pushed down too much in your life where you can't like take a stroll and like smile at that person on the street who like maybe wasn't noticed all day, and like just like making time in your life to like live freely and like share your spirit and your voice and your like, even if it's just like something kind that you can do, like opening a door or like helping somebody, like that's so important.
Those little moments of kindness go so far. Do you think that what do you do when you're feeling like you're on that merry-go-round and you know that you're kind of burning the candle at both ends? What self-care stuff do you like to do to check in with yourself?
Usually like I've been big into running lately.
Nice.
I like running.
Clears your head.
It clears my head. It has helped me quit smoking.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
And even if it's just like 15 minutes, and even if I'm walking for like 60% of that run, like it's really good to be outside and just be off my phone, out of the studio, like, and just my attention on something specific. So whatever like exercise thing I think that you can put into your life that's easily obtainable. I like running because it's free. I don't have to go to a gym to do it. You got to be outside. You don't really need anything to do it besides like a good pair of shoes. So it's just like really easily accessible. It's like you don't need to show up at a certain time. It can be any time of the day. Like you have 30 extra minutes, you can go for a run. And
do you listen to music when you do that, or do you listen to podcasts or audiobooks?
I don't listen to stuff when I run, but I listen to stuff when I'm working.
Okay.
Yeah.
What music are you into right now?
I've really been into Kevin Morby.
Ooh, okay.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
Like singer-songwriter. That's who I've been listening to this week.
Very mellow. I like that.
Yeah. Mellow, chill. My music taste is like all over the place, so that's why it's like hard for me to answer music questions, because like I mean sometimes I'll listen to really ambient things, sometimes I'll listen to like stuff from the 60s and 70s.
Well, I can answer one from you and I's friendship. Songs that will never leave my head because of you. No I have seen the others and I have discovered that this fight is not worth fighting. Dispatch. And then the other song that I heard with you for the first time, because we were friends when you're really receptive and learning other music when you're around other people.
God, I have not heard that song.
Lola. La 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 la. Yes. I don't know why that song resonated with me, because it was like scandalous at the time. Remember? You remember that song?
Well, I'll say the Lola song is definitely an influence from my older sister Megan.
I can see that. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of Kelsey has 2 older sisters.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that has a lot to do with your music taste. That was definitely a Megan choice for sure.
She was cooler than I was.
She was very cool. She still is. She lives in Italy.
Yeah.
We live here. Okay, I just have a couple other more questions. What goals do you have in the future, not only artistically, but personally?
My main artistic goal, and if anybody is out there that can help me with this, is to get into a museum. Preferably the DMA or the Nasher, since it's my hometown.
Okay, are y'all listening, Nasher? Y'all listening? Okay.
I mean, I've thought about that question a lot. Like, what is my actual goal as an artist? Like right now I am supporting myself financially from making paintings, which was my dream for so long. So it's like, what more do I want?
Right.
And it's like, and then there's this whole conversation of like awards and certificates, and like, do you really want the award, or is like the reward a symbol of all the other, like, it's like the reward is like a consequence of doing something long enough and right enough for like the world to recognize you. So I don't really know exactly what that reward is on the art world. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know if it's more access to like public spaces, so I could like affect people maybe in a stronger way, or whether it is museum collections. Museums almost feel like a little bit like elitist to me, which like I tread lightly with. And so, I think there's a lot of different approaches in the art world, and there's literally like no limit to what you can do. That's the fun part about it. And what was it? A question about life?
Oh, what do you want to accomplish personally?
Personally, I think I would like to be a better surfer.
Okay. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And I want to keep holding more public events for the community here. So that's kind of like what I'm working on this year.
You're doing that.
Yeah.
You're doing all your goals. Yeah. You just told me. Okay. I have two heady questions. In all your years of studying mankind, what do you know that holds true regardless of the circumstances and challenges and period of time?
Love always wins.
Love it. Yeah. And that you show that, I think, a lot in your art.
Thanks.
Do you think? What do you think your art shows that you've learned about mankind?
I think as a whole, it's kind of it's about like the psychology of the self, kind of, where it's like the stretching of the self and the multiple versions of the self, and how we hold each other, and like how we interact with these different symbols that have been in our visual language for centuries, even longer than that. And I think symbols and imagery is this kind of universal language where like you don't really need an education or a certain background or a certain like title to understand what an image is. Like I could show an image to somebody old or young from any place in the world, from any background, and they could feel maybe the same about it or different depending on what the image was. So it's this like universal language that I'm really interested in. And I mean, ideally I would like the world to be more peaceful. Obviously it's not.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate conversation there, but I like my artwork to have like an overreigning message of positivity, because I feel like if I'm going to do anything with my life and this skill set, then I want to like produce images that are going to be positive and be a light. It's like ultimately the goal would be that these artworks would live past my lifetime, that they would stay in like museum collections and like, you know, would be housed carefully, and that like generations people beyond me would be like enjoying these artworks. Like that's the artist's dream, is to
your goal and your dream is to leave a legacy in your art.
Yeah, which sometimes feels narcissistic. Like, no, in a way, I want to be immortal.
No, but that's what's beautiful about art, right? And and legacies are built in lots of different ways, but that's a tangible something that we can leave behind. That's why art is so beautiful, because so many people can do so many outward things that lots of people aren't making something that's tangible that can outlive you. That's a beautiful thing. Like my talent with my music, unless I have a child that can sing or something, that dies with me. Yeah. But my songs live forever, you know, and that's so beautiful with your art, is that is something that will live forever, that people can always have.
And I think it's amazing. I think it's, I mean, that is the main reason why I do what I do, is because I want my life to mean something, and I want to leave something behind for others. So then once you solve that equation, you say, well, what do you want to say? What do you want to leave behind? And like, of all the things that I could say, I want people to look back and see that there was like hope and a light
and love.
Yeah.
Well, I see it. I mean, it's all over your studio. Okay, my last question. What keeps you looking up?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm excited about the opportunities that I don't even know are there. I think it's like this ineffable thing that I'm after. This like searching to always be better than like who I was the day before. And beautiful things around me keep me looking up, whether that's like the sunrise or an amazing friend or like a really cute dog. Just like, you know, seeing the positivity in the world around you. That's what keeps me going.
Oh, that's the best answer I think I've heard so far.
Oh,
okay, Kelsey, I just admire you so much. And just being in this room of art has just made my day so much better. Tell people where they can find you so they can come see your art in the studio or look at it on Instagram or come to one of your events if they're in town. Pimp yourself out.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy talking to you.
Yeah.
You can come to my event on the 22nd. It's the Friday during the Dallas Art Fair. It's at the studio. There is information online at my Instagram, C Kelsey Paint, which is like C Spot Run. And you can Google my name, Kelsey Ann Heimerman, and it'll pull up a website, and there's a bunch of information on there. Any DMs and stuff I directly respond to. So just shoot me a message if you have any questions.
Kelsey's doing amazing things, not only in Texas, but she's really making an impact on a lot of people, especially with what she's done post-pandemic. So I can't wait to see all the things that she's going to accomplish. And it's been so awesome talking to someone so positive, and she really is such a good influence on our community. And I can't wait to watch what she does in the future. All right, guys, keep looking up, because that's where it all is. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe and rate. Keep looking up anywhere you stream your podcasts. And to stay up to date on all my latest episodes, you can follow at KLU Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or on my website at carolinekraddick.com. And always remember, keep looking up, because that's where it all is.